This is the Ready Set Podcast. And here's your host, me, Joe Persinger. Ready Set Podcast. I'm Joe Persinger, and I'm the most consistent and pragmatic motherfucker you'll ever know. Alright, so today we have quite the show for you. I'm probably going to have to break this bitch up into like a few different parts here. Otherwise, it's going to be another podcast of me droning on about something for an hour, which I know is basically the equivalent of asking someone to eat a 70-ounce piece of shit. That's probably a little harsh on myself, but yeah, I could imagine. Anyway, I will stop the self-loathing here, and we're going to jump into something that we kind of alluded to last podcast episode. And, actually, before we do that, I actually want to say a few things here. I watched this movie called Killdozer a few weeks ago. It was called Tread, and it was about this thing they called Killdozer, which was it's actually a great story. I almost don't even want to ruin it. You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a podcast on that movie. It was a documentary, and it was an actual thing that happened, and it's kind of an interesting tale into why, how county governments and cities run by one family can kind of get fucked pretty quick. There's more to it than just that, but that's kind of what it is on the surface. It's really good. I definitely recommend checking that movie out on Netflix, and I believe it's also on YouTube. Wasn't really... I think it was like one of these film festival style movies, so that's probably why it's on YouTube as well. So if you don't own Netflix, it's definitely out there for you to find. Okay, let's get to this thing really quickly, or it's going to be at 30 minutes before we know it. So the 2020 general election happened roughly a month ago. It's still kind of happening with all the court cases and everything. I just wanted to kind of break into that. So we're going to start in with a really broad brush, and it's just going to kind of get painted down into a more narrow situation. Let's just look at the 2020 election from an election standpoint and a macro election standpoint. So what happened? All right, obviously, urban centers went heavily for Joe Biden, and you know what they say, the heavier the turnout, it's going to favor Democrats. I don't understand how that quantification works, or qualification works, but if that's what they say, right? So the suburbs definitely favored Joe Biden. Urban centers went heavily for Biden, and in several districts were favorable to Biden. Several suburban districts were favorable to Biden that I believe went for Trump before. These were in suburbs in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, reaffirming that the blue wall does exist. There was actually a very interesting article on The Atlantic. Hold on, let me get that one. So this article in The Atlantic, it was titled, Why Big City Dominance is a Problem for Democrats. This is written by Derek Thompson of The Atlantic. It's actually a very interesting look into how some things are getting overshadowed through the corporate media on how, as big as a win as this was for Biden, it's just as much of a loss for the Democrat Party as well. I'm going to put it on our Ready Set Podcast Facebook page if you want to check it out. But let's dive into this article really quickly. So about halfway down, it says, the Democrats' dominance in large metros seems like cause for optimism, especially in a rapidly suburbanizing country. But this reliance on density is creating a host of problems for the party going forward. As Democrats like to point out, they have won the national popular vote 7 times in the past 8 presidential elections, along with a majority of ballots cast nationwide in 6 of the past 8 Senate elections. But national vote tallies don't count for anything under our constitutional rules. Liberals can and do complain about this all day, but saying if the Constitution didn't exist, Capitol Hill would be mostly Democrats is like saying if the weak nuclear force didn't exist, the galaxy would be mostly photons. Neat, but so what? There's something to be said about that right there. Here you have Democrats saying, we've won the national popular vote. We need to get rid of this. You can do that, but, like it says at the end there. And I honestly don't even believe that. That's garbage. Because, this goes back to, you can't have 51% ruling over 49% of the country. Nothing would ever get done. It would just be a roundabout of people passing laws and then losing power, and then another party coming in and finding, deregulating or taking those laws that they passed, or executive orders, undoing that. I mean, it's just a parliamentary system. It's like it's like a circle jerk. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but I mean, I don't in general, but it's essentially what it is. You're not doing anything. It's one step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, two steps back. However you want to look at it. And this is kind of where the article kind of takes an interesting turn here. So it goes on to say, Democrats could potentially even out their electoral college disadvantage by making big southern states like Texas competitive. Good luck. I'm going to talk about polling later in this, and they had Texas going blue. It did not, which disproportionately empowers rural white population that overwhelmingly votes Republican. The gap currently holds both Senate seats in Alaska, Arkansas, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Those 11 states have 22 senators who collectively represent fewer people than the population of California, which has 2 Senate seats. Okay, so this is kind of a misnomer here, because what he's trying to say is, oh, well, the Senate is misproportionately representing citizens, or they represent the states, is how this works. They're not supposed to represent people, so they already got that wrong. And they're saying basically that it's disproportionate because California has 2 senators, just like these smaller states that have 2 senators. Again, the Senate, what a lot of people don't understand is the senators weren't elected by the people when this started. That's something new within the last 100 and something years, I want to say. The original people who elected senators were state legislatures. And when I first read that, I thought that was kind of wonky and stupid, rife for corruption. But then when I started learning shit and understanding how the system was put in place and why it was put in place, you realize that's what the House is for. That thing Nancy Pelosi is overseeing? That part of Congress is for the people. That's why California has the majority of Congress members in the House, because they have the most people in the country. For crying out loud, LA County has as many people as the state of Wyoming, and honestly, they probably have more. So to sit there and say that the Senate isn't proportionally representative, it's stupid to say that, because the House is the party of the people. They are proportionally represented. California is definitely proportionally represented because they have the majority of the proportions in the House. And the Senate is basically someone that is a body as the other half of the chamber that's representing the states, i.e. why the state legislators were picking senators, because they needed someone that they could trust to put in Washington that will look out for their best interests. The problem is we're in this fuck face state of globalism, and that's why this has kind of got into the wayside, and they just gloss over it because they don't want the rubes to actually understand what's going on. So essentially, this article basically goes on to talk about how really these urban centers are going to be problems for Democrats finding enough representation in the Senate for these states because of, socialism, buzzwords like defund the police. What was the other one? Let me look at that other one up. Here it is. Defund open borders, socialism, it's killing us, said Representative Vicente Gonzalez, a Democrat from South Texas, who nearly lost a district this year. He'd previously won by 20 points. Think about that. 2 years ago, he won this district by 20 points. I mean, that's a shellacking, as Obama would say. And this year, he barely won it. So what does that tell you? And for those that don't know, not like I know what this district is off the top of my head, but South Texas is probably going to be, somewhere on the border. There's going to be a heavy Mexican working population there. A lot of people who, are immigration is a thing that that has a profound effect on these people's day-to-day lives. And this is being shown in this district's voting because they almost just took out this Democrat who won by 20 points earlier. And he goes on to say, the article goes on to say, beyond giving Republicans and Fox News easy ways to tarnish otherwise appealing reforms. Remember, this is the Atlantic, so they need a bad guy. Instagram socialism sloganeering is a turnoff for moderates who spend time online but are not, in the modern capital O sense, online. I don't know what that means. The average voter in a general election is something like a moderate 50-year-old woman without a 4-year college degree who stays away from partisan media and follows politics only occasionally. This is the person that I'm talking about. That's the rube that they're going for. This is who the Democrats needed to, fool, basically. And here you go. She might hate Trump, but her dispositional conservatism makes her less likely to embrace policies tweaked in a social media lab for viral emotionality. And that's what they're kind of talking about with defund the police and, all those kind of sloganeers like that, is that these things are detrimental to the Democrats moving forward and gaining more power in the Senate. They have these urban voting cores, but because they garner so much attention from these senators and other Democrat politicians, now where they're saying, we need to defund the police. Look at Seattle. Look at some of those places. I mean, that's just Wrigley doing his thing. This is hurting moderate Democrats. And this is kind of what I am actually about to get into here. Actually, would be me jumping in. Yeah, let's do that. So that's kind of what it is, we had these urban centers that went heavily to Biden. The suburbs looked like they were splitting the ticket where they were picking Biden and then, choosing representation in the House based on their preferences, and obviously by Republicans picking up 12 seats, 15 seats, whatever it was, defund the police, socialism, and all that looting and rioting, just like, 2 years ago calling Brett Kavanaugh a sexual rapist or assault, whatever. It did the Democrats no good, and people voted against them when it came to the ballot box. So did the Democrats win? Yes. No. Yes, they won the presidency. No, because they got destroyed everywhere else. They lost the House seats. They lost those House seats. Now they have a slim majority. Do you think they're going to be able to pass anything, wildly to the left? I mean, they're not, because they need those few moderates like Abigail Spanberger, this gentleman in that South Texas district, to vote yes. And if they're going to be putting up crazy laws like that, those guys are going to side with the Republicans. And now you have Nancy Pelosi, who wants another term at speakership. So that's another 2 years of power, preferably without having to deal with Trump, is my guess and her thought process here. And she said if she wins, she will be on her way out if she wins another speakership. Why? What's the point? You're rich. You're powerful. You're over 80 years old. Just retire, bitch. Enjoy the rest of your life. I mean, power must be something that, power is power because it makes people want to work all the time or not work all the time, which means they're working because they don't work. You see what I'm saying? So here's what I think what's going on. This isn't about Nancy Pelosi being noble. This isn't about Nancy Pelosi, wanting to do the right thing. If she was going to do the right thing, she'd retire right now and be gone in January. But that's not what she's doing. She's staying on with a caveat, which is, if you elect me as speaker again, I will retire come the next Congress. And I don't think it's that simple. I think this is a classic example of someone pissing on your shoes and telling you it's raining, or slapping you in the face and telling you it's a hailstorm, whichever. And this is what's going on. I can't imagine it being anything else other than that. She sees the writing on the wall. She just watched what happened. They had all these polls coming in telling them you're going to basically shellac the crap out of the Republicans, and that never happened. Now she's operating with a slim majority, and the last thing she wants to do is go out with an L like that. And I think she understands how politics work. And we watched this in 2016. Or I should say 2018, but in 2016 when Trump won everything, they had the House, they had the Senate, and the presidency. And one thing you learn is when the party has all the powers, all of a sudden, these senators and House representatives who need stuff for their state, they come out of the woodwork and they will hold up the smallest things to get the leverage they need to get what they want. That's what happens when one party controls all three branches of government. Well, I should say two, because the third is the courts. Um, and Nancy knows that in 2022, when these midterms come around and Joe Biden has been president for 20 years, or for 20 years, I hope not. He probably won't even be alive for one. But if he's still around come the midterms in 2 years, that's going to be problematic for Nancy. Because as we have seen, let's go back to Bill Clinton being elected in 92. What happened in 94? Newt became Speaker of the House. Obama gets elected in 2008 with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. What happens in 2010? They lose the House. In 2016, Trump gets elected. They have all three, two chambers of Congress and the presidency. What happens in 2018? Nancy Pelosi becomes Speaker of the House, the blue wave, so to speak. And that's kind of where we are here. Now, Joe Biden just won the presidency. The Republicans picked up about 12 House seats in this 2020 election. And now with this 2022 election coming up with a Democrat in the presidency, statistically, the Republicans will take the House back. And again, Nancy Pelosi knows this. And what did she just say? I will retire in 2022. Huh. That's funny how that works. I mean, I can't see. I would be blown away if a blue wave came in 2022. And if a blue wave comes in 2022, do you think Nancy's going to retire? She's going to come up with another reason to hang on to power for another 2 years. I mean, what Pelosi is doing, saying that she's going to retire if you elect me for another 2 years, knowing what's coming in 2 years, coming down the pike. I mean, this is kind of like knowing that This is like knowing that someone is going to kick you in the face, but you claim you're taking it for the team. I mean, or you could say it's you're terminally ill, but you don't tell anyone that you're terminally ill. It's just something you're going to keep internally. And when your ex-boyfriend suggests it's you or your friends, you offer yourself up. I don't understand what that was. I think I was trying to write something originally, and I just totally changed it on the backside of it. But basically, you're doing something under the guise of something else, knowing that what you're really doing is, to protect yourself. And that's kind of what we got here. So is it noble on the surface? I mean, I guess. But you would see, this is where I was trying to use my stupid thing. Let's call it this. You're terminally ill. You know you're dying. You don't tell anyone. One of your friends is about to get run over by a train, and you kick him in the face off the train tracks and let the train run you over. Okay, so is that noble? Yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, it's not, from your friend's perspective it is, but in that like half a second before the train runs you over and obliterates you into a million, into just, meat popcorn, if you will. And for those that don't get that, when I was in Illinois, when you get you ever had weed that you get, and it's not like those big giant buds, but like those mid to small buds, they call that popcorn. So, if you go run by a train, you explode, your meat popcorn, basically. And so, yeah, in that half a second before you're turned into, a beef stew of sorts, you're kind of sitting there, you know that you're coming to grips with the fact that you're a fraud. You die knowing this was going to happen no matter what. And that's what Nancy is. She wants to oversee this Congress one last time. For what? Why? So she can walk away in 2022 saying that, she served her time, she's a winner, this, that, the other. Oh, give me a break. This is basically someone who's taking leadership because she doesn't want to let go of it. This is what it is. It's her, what do they call it? Her legacy. That's what this is. She does not want her legacy to be a lady that took over the House and ran it into the ground 2 years later, only to watch the Republicans gain 12 seats in a year they won back the presidency. I mean, think about that trade. I mean, if you're Joe Biden, you're like, sure, I'll take all that power for, a net loss of 12 House seats. But if you're Pelosi, that's a shit deal for you. Because let's say she did want to retire this year. Maybe that was her plan. But now she's got to keep. I mean, I know means I feel sorry for her. I'm just saying, this is why she's hanging on to power. This is just, it's not a power grab, but more of like a legacy grab, if you will. She's holding on to all this just so that she can say she left Congress on a high note. But no matter what happens, that's the furthest thing from the truth, because when she leaves in 2022, if she leaves, that Democrat Party is going to be in the middle of a civil war between the progressives and the corporate Democrats, while the moderates just get taken out left and right. All right, that's going to do it for us today. You're going to tune in next time for our 2020 for part 2 of our general election coverage here. Next time we're going to get into the pollsters and why and how they got it wrong. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please give us a like and a follow on our Facebook page. Check us out on YouTube and wherever you may listen to your podcasts, except Mixcloud. I totally dumped those fucks, and SoundCloud. Anything with a cloud in it, you're out. Sorry, bitch. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm Joe Persinger, and I am the most pragmatic and consistent motherfucker you'll ever meet. See ya, fucks.
Thanks for listening to the Ready Set Podcast. Check us out next week, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and look for us on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, tell me something I don't know. Yeah, tell me.
Ready Set Podcast.